I got a
What's up?
question for you, Mike. Is it possible for society to formulate a code of morals that society can abide by without the guidance of religion, i.e., the Bible?
Let me
I
start
think
by
it is.
asking you a question. How do you define an action that has to do with morality?
Well,
What
and
what
that's a good
what what
question.
what constitutes a moral or
Who,
immoral act?
who does and who's the one who does that, right? And so there's something I can say. I live in Georgia, which is a state, right? And so the state laws are made by state legislators and guys and gals that run the state. In somewhere like Pennsylvania, which is a Commonwealth state, anybody correct me if I'm wrong, was developed by, which I don't know, is there a difference there? And the reason I say that is because there's different sets of laws, right? Who defines what's morally correct in that state?
Let me give you what I think morality is. I think
Okay.
in order for something to be a moral action, it has to check two boxes. First of all, one of the boxes it has to check is it has to have some effect on a person's well-being, either good or bad. If it's something that affects someone's well-being in a good way, it's on its way to being a moral action. If it affects someone negatively, it's on its way to being an immoral action. But it has to check a second box as well, which is intent. So if there's something that affects someone's well-being in a positive way, but there's no intention, it's not an act. It is neither moral nor immoral. It is amoral. So it's not something that's a moral issue. Like an example of negatively affecting someone's well-being is someone getting run over by my car. Say I'm driving to work and I run someone over. I mean to run them over. That wasn't an immoral action on my part, even though my action directly caused them harm. It would be immoral of me to swerve out of my way to hit them with my car and then run them over, right? So that's checking the negative affecting of someone's well-being and then the intentional act. Does that make sense?
Right. So you're checking, and so Commonwealth, going back, is any government in which all people have a say, which I can say in the state in the state of Pennsylvania is bullshit. But okay, so what was the first box you wanted us to check?
In order for something to be a moral issue, whether moral or immoral, it has to be something that affects someone's well-being, but it also has to be something that's done with intent.
So I guess that makes sense.
Like I can't.
I thought there for a split second, I thought I would be able to cut you down in the moment, but then my little peanut brain caught back up, and I agree with you now.
Yeah, I can't think of any examples where there's something we would consider to be immoral that's also an accident. You know what I mean?
Okay, so you gave a good explanation of what you think, right? Which defines
that's
moral.
my understanding of morality, and I think laws of the land. As long as we have the goal in mind of reducing suffering where possible, we construct our laws of the land to try and achieve that goal when sometimes the situation might not clear cut. So we have like a kind of a quick reference to the reason I think that we have judges, because sometimes I think can be technically illegal, but it's something that's done with moral intent, in which the law should be suspended in favor of achieving our moral goals. Like a girl steals an orange to keep herself from starving to death. Say she steals an orange from a rich man's cart, I don't think that she should be punished from that if the result of her not doing that is she die.
Well, I don't think an orange is going to keep you alive, but
well, I'm just using an example. Just make the example whatever you want. The result would be the girl lives if she steals, and if she doesn't steal, then she dies.
Why doesn't she get a job?
Let's say it's like a 6-year-old girl and child labor is illegal or whatever. I mean, I guess stealing is illegal too, but let's say her only option in that moment was to do something illegal. Let's say someone got kidnapped, and in order to escape their kidnappers, they had to steal their kidnapper's car to drive away from their house in the woods to get back to city so they could get help. Like stealing a car.
I mean, that's
like stealing.
I don't think
is generally illegal, but
I think any judge would say that was a heroic move, right?
So when it comes to making judgment calls, even in a legal sense, I think that laws of the land still should bow to achieving those moral goals, as long as we agree on what those moral goals are. And I think the biggest one that everyone agrees on is reducing suffering where we can.
So going back to the original question, do you think it would be possible to formulate a society with a code of morals without using religion as a backup or a basis?
I'd say in a way we already have. A lot of people would look at just languages in the Constitution and say that the United States is a very Christian country, where I would read that as actually the opposite, where America is a very secular country. I think, well, if we're going to use religion as our standpoint, me being at least partly non-heterosexual, according to the doctrines of some religions, I should be put to death. So I'd say in a way it's actually a good thing that we don't use religion as our standpoint. A crime punishable by death, but the only reason we can identify it as immoral is the Bible says so. It's an action that's done intentionally, but it's not causing harm to myself or anyone else.
Well, this isn't the Middle East. We don't put you to death for being gay or being bi.
And a good thing for that too. But in the Middle East, they would, because they use religion as their benchmark for achieving their moral goals.
Society, without ever knowing what religion is, do you think? Not that the world is not in chaos, right? But do you think it would be worse, better off, or the same?
I think we would be worse off if people weren't free to at least explore ideas like that. Like, I think at least having the availability to inquire on if there's a God or not and look for ways we could potentially test that in the future, I think that goes a long way towards having an open mind. Like having complex philosophical questions give us, for lack of a better term, a lot of it is intellectual masturbation, like it's kind of just indulging in the process of thought where it's all hypothetical, but I still think that has value in a way. Like I absolutely love thinking about hypothetical concepts that would probably never happen, and I think plenty of other people would too.
I'm sorry, can you define for me intellectual masturbation? What does that mean?
That was a term I heard.
You have to remember. Myke and I are two very different kind of people, right? We're good friends, but he's more intellectual about things, where I'm more just straight to the point and a jack-a about things. So that's why I asked that question. When I hear intellectual masturbation, of course, inside my little peanut brain, I start giggling, right?
Yeah, I'd say intellectual masturbation would be like through concepts that don't really have real-world application. Like, have you heard of the ship of Theseus idea?
I have no clue what that is.
Okay, so I'll lay it out as simply as I can. Say you have a ship, like an old wooden ship made of like boards and stuff, and you start disassembling it part by part, and you start reassembling those parts into an exact copy sitting right next to it, and replacing all the parts on the original ship with new parts. So by the end of it, you have two ships. One is built out of parts of the original, and then the original one, all of the parts have been completely replaced. At that point, which one is the ship of Theseus? Like, it's an interesting idea, and I guess there's an argument to be made for an answer either way, but at the end of the day, it's all hypothetical. It doesn't really have any real-world application. So I'd say indulging in trying to solve that problem, as it were, is, in a way, kind of just intellectual masturbation. That's just what I'd call things like that.
I'm still stuck on masturbation. So, you think that we could live or could form, and you think that we currently do have a code of morals, right, that we live by without using religion as a guidance? I think I can agree with you on that for the most part. I think there is that, there's a lot of people out there that religious, but they still have that moral kind of what we would consider to be moral ethics. You're going to help somebody when they need it, if whatever. And then you have this whole other group of people who just don't give a shit about anybody, about anything, about people, about the earth, about anything.
Well, I think even around the world too, I think most people generally want what's better for each other because we can't help but empathize with each other. Like, for me, like I say, it works for me. I'm not good to people because I feel obligated to, for the most part. I help people because I want to help them, because I empathize with them. Even like, even if every single person in the world didn't agree with me, and everyone was like a bunch of murdering heathen savages or whatever, I don't really feel like I'd change at all. Like, I really don't care what anyone else does. For me, it's hard not to feel hopeless where you know you really won't have that much of an impact on the world, but the only thing you can really do is just be the change that you want to see. And that moral code absolutely works for me.
Oh, and for me as well. I mean, I try to treat everybody with respect and including myself, but
But you don't do it because you feel obligated to. You do it because
I do it because that's just, I feel like that's just the way I am. That's the way I can't necessarily say the way I was raised. I didn't have the best upbringing, but, push my kids to be that way, and everybody in my family, I want them to have kind of the same feelings towards other people. But it hurts when you see so many other people out there that just don't give a damn about other people, about the environment, and trust me, I'm no tree hugger. Okay. That's not where I'm going with this, but many dipshits out there that just don't care. And they just act like pieces of shit. And people,
and there's more of them the deeper you look.
Oh, of course. And here's what really gets me. People praise these, excuse my language. There's so many nasty people out there that do something and they get praised by people. And we don't have to get into all that because trust me, we'll be going till 7 a.m. You don't want to do that. So we've established that we can, and there is a code of morals that a portion of the society lives by. It's just unfortunate that, while it's not a religion, big group of people can't get on board with that and just don't care about other people. They don't care about anything but themselves. I find that very, very selfish. And I like to stay away from those type of people.
I'll tell you what helps me is looking at a line of causality. Like, yes, obviously that person that's throwing his paper on the ground, he doesn't care about his actions. So I look at the line of causality and I'm like, well, why does he not care? And you can go from there. And then if you follow that line of reasoning enough, you will eventually get to the root cause of the problem.
But see, like you would think about that, right? You're the type of person that would, think about something like that. Whereas me,
well, I overthink things too.
When I drove by him, I mumbled under my breath, "What a piece!" I don't care.
So,
when I see actions like that, I automatically, maybe I shouldn't assume, but I automatically think, piece of shit. And yeah, it's just littering. But there's so many other cases I could bring up. I mean, I've seen so many things happen. I don't understand how some people can be.
I've had to train that part of my brain where I look at someone who's doing something like that, and my knee-jerk reaction would have been anger and disgust, and frankly, sometimes it still is. But what I try to do is I look at the situation. I always start by taking a step back, and I think, okay, this guy's being a total jackass, but there's obviously a reason that he's doing it. And maybe the reason is he just doesn't have any regard for anyone else. And I'm like, okay, well, why doesn't he have any regard for anyone else? And I see things so much deeper than that. Like, I usually make the assumption that maybe the person who just cut me off is having literally the worst day of his life right now. And I just happen to be in his line of fire to see it enacted on other people. It's not so much that he doesn't care about other people. It's just maybe he just doesn't care about anything other than what he's going through right in that moment.
Yeah, and I can understand that. I think it comes with circumstances too, right? And situations, right? I get cut off. Okay,
Have you ever lashed out at someone in anger, and it's because you're having the worst? Or has anyone ever lashed out at you, and you tried your first instinct was to try and diffuse the situation, and then later you come to find out, my mom just died today, or something like the bank foreclosed on my house or something like that. Like, you find out that they're actually going through something really terrible, and you almost feel kind of guilty for getting so angry at them when it's like, I didn't realize you had it so rough today. Like,
yeah, and then I can understand, like I said, certain circumstances and situations, those aren't every day.
Sure.
If you were just to where you live, if you just drove around for 2 hours and watched people, you'd see some of the worst of the worst. I see them every day just riding through town. You cut me off. Okay. Something's going on, or you're just a jackass, whatever. I don't really care. We spoke on another video about, you see something bad happening to somebody else. my natural instinct would be to jump in and help that person. A lot of people that don't, because they have their own, they don't about that person. They care about, I'll say it, I got to get this on video. I got to show the world. No, you don't. There's a security camera in that bus. How about instead of just pulling out your damn phone and recording and screaming, how about you jump in there and help? How is it when I watch a video, the Asian guy on the bus in New York got his ass beat by a black guy for no apparent reason. The guy that did the beating got arrested and thrown in jail, and the Asian guy, he did nothing wrong. 20 people in that damn bus, every one of them with their phone up. Not one person jumped in to help that poor kid that did nothing wrong. Those people right there, no regard for. That's the kind of people I'm talking about.
Sure, and there's plenty of people like that.
That's what I'm talking about.
For me, I always keep the line of causality in mind. Not that that people aren't responsible for their actions, but personally, I believe in some form of determinism where events are just inevitable based on prior conditions and circumstances.
Would you say that event was inevitable?
Which one?
That guy was going to get his ass beat on the bus when he was just sitting there?
Well, personally, I think that everything in the universe is inevitable because everything follows a chain of causality, which are governed by the laws of physics. So in a very literal sense, yes.
So are you saying that it was morally okay for those people, for nobody to jump in?
No, I'm not saying it was morally
because
okay.
It was going to happen inevitably?
I'm not saying that it was morally permissible. I'm just saying that it was inevitable.
It was inevitable what? That he was going to get beat up, or that he was going to get beat up and nobody was going to do anything to help him?
I feel like this is going to be a different conversation, but every single thing that happens, as far as I can tell, in our universe, with some regard for quantum fluctuations, everything that happens is preceded by a chain of direct causality. Like interactions between atoms, interactions between chemicals and compounds. Everything that happens is a sequence that's already set in motion. We're just the current presentation of the universe. This is the universe understanding itself, courtesy of being us. This is going to get into a pretty nebulous talking point if you let me go on this.
I just find it hard to believe that society has come to where it's come, and I know we started this on talking about a society that formulates its own code of morals, which again, I agree with you. I think we have, but I think there's a huge portion of people out there who have not adopted those or simply don't care about them because they're concerned with themselves. They don't care about anybody else. All they care about is bettering themselves at any and all cost. And
that's always been the case. That's kind of a condition of our human nature.
Right. Of course, you want to better yourself.
That's not an excuse. That's just an explanation.
Yeah, I mean, everybody wants to better themselves. You do. I do. Everybody does. And I think we work towards doing that. But while you're doing that, you can also have some compassion for your fellow man. And it's just for me, it's sad when you see situations like the one I brought up, which is only one of thousands that happens every year just in the United States. Pretty damn sad. And those people that did nothing are pretty damn sad. I think you would agree with that.